Hello and welcome back. I was tagged by Nicole Pauline to do the Bookstore Book Tag. So that is what I'm going to do today. The tag questions are really long and sort of describe going into a bookstore and finding books and stuff. So I'm not going to read those out because I'm lazy. I'm just going to go straight to the books that I have picked as answers to the questions in the tag. So the first question was, what is a book that has a perfect beginning? I chose My Family and Other Animals by Gerald Durrell. So this is a sort of fictionalized memoir about Gerald Durrell's life as a kid on the island of Corfu during the kind of 30s, I think it was. Gerald Durrell is a famous English naturalist, and so this charts the beginning of his love for animals, and amongst all the descriptions of animals that he includes in this book, there are also heaps of descriptions of his family and the kind of crazy stuff that they got up to on Corfu. So the book starts off with them sitting in their sitting room in England, and it gives a really brief description of each character. So there's Gerald himself, he's about 10 years old. There's his mum, there's his older brother Larry, his other brother Leslie, and his sister Margot. And they all have illnesses and colds of varying degrees, and the way he describes them is just so evocative. You could just imagine that you're sitting in that rainy, drizzly sitting room with them. The dialogue that he gives to each character, you have no doubt about who these characters are, and it gives you a real sense of why they wanted to leave England, why they wanted to go to Corfu in order to escape the drizzly cold English weather and go and live in a really nice sunny amazing place. And because what is important about this book is the family and the family's antics, the reason it's a great beginning is because it gives you a perfect snapshot of who the family are. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I would definitely recommend. I've read it 3 times, I think, and it's just so much fun. Second question, pick a book that made you bawl your eyes out. Obvious answer, but The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I have trouble remembering the plots of books, so to be honest, I don't really remember a lot of the detail of this book. I'm not sure if I can entirely remember what happens in the end, to be honest. What I do remember about reading this book is that I'd almost finished it on the bus. I had a few pages to go, so as soon as I got home, I just had to sit down and finish off the book, and I just cried. I think from the emotion of finishing this really thick book, which is a lot of emotions running all the way through it. And yeah, I bawled my eyes out. Third question, pick a book that is a hidden gem. So I don't have a copy of this with me, but the book I picked for this one is called A Pack of Lies by Geraldine McCaughrean. So Geraldine McCaughrean is a pretty prolific English children's writer. She's pretty much been writing books from the 80s onwards, and this particular book was published in 1988. I have a secondhand copy of it that I got from a secondhand bookstore. So the book is about an antique store. Mum and her daughter work in the store, and they're struggling to sell antiques. No one's really buying them, and then this mysterious man walks in, and he starts telling stories about the antiques to potential buyers, and this helps them sell the items even though the stories aren't technically true. So each chapter involves a different story that the guy is telling. Each story is in a different style, so there's a gothic horror story, there's a story about an English boarding school, and they all are kind of parodies of the different type of British genres of writing. The ending is really stunning. It's really meta for a kid's book especially. The reason I think it's really great is because it gives a fantastic critique on writing, on the way different genres work, and then the ending, really interesting look on sort of characters and questions whether characters themselves are self-aware that they are fiction. It's probably not easy to get hold of, but I would definitely recommend it if you see it in a secondhand bookstore somewhere. The fourth question was, pick a book that you are looking forward to being released. I haven't really looked forward to the release of a specific book for a long time. Probably the last book I was really looking forward to was Margaret Atwood's last book, The Heart Grows Last, just because I love Margaret Atwood and always excited to read anything that she writes. So I guess the next thing that she writes, which who knows when that will be. But yeah, I guess I'm excited for that. Name a book that you bought because of its cover. I would say generally vintage classics. I buy them because I absolutely adore all the covers of every vintage classic book. I just think they're so beautifully designed and really represent the story really well. This is just an example of my collection. We've got I Capture the Castle, which is a bit different because it doesn't have the red spine, but it's just so pretty. To Kill a Mockingbird, I think this is the first vintage classic I owned. Prime Prejudice, that one's alright. I think there are better Jane Austen editions. And Handmaid's Tale, of course, is really cool and striking and beautifully goes with the red spine. So number 6, name a book that made you suffer but you're still happy about it. The book I picked for this is Room. I wouldn't say I was exactly happy reading Room. It definitely makes you suffer. If you don't know, Room is a book narrated from the point of view of a 6-year-old child, and this child has always lived in this room with his mum. You find out that a man has been keeping the child and his mum in this room, locked, trapped, and they obviously really want to escape. Obviously the book is incredibly tragic. Reading from the point of view of the child, he knows nothing except the room. He's grown up in this room, and so discovering the world through his eyes is quite traumatic, because he points out so many inconsistencies and illogical aspects of our society, because he hasn't brought up to just accept them, and obviously the trauma of what happened to his mum. But it's also an incredibly beautiful book, and they are incredibly amazing characters, and so reading it, it is horrible to read, but it's also unputdownable, which is why I picked it for that category. Last one is number 7, pick a book that has a perfect ending. This I could not go past Howl's Moving Castle by Donoghue Jones. It just has such a beautiful ending when Sophie's turned back into a young lady, and she and Howl just like lock eyes, and there's all this stuff happening around them, but they don't notice anything else that's happening because they're so like transfixed by each other and in love, and it's beautiful. And like, I usually have a heart of stone and do not like romance, but this is like the one book where I'm like, yes, the romance is beautiful. That's the end of the tag. Thank you, Nicole, for tagging me. I'm gonna tag a bunch of people in the description box, and obviously tag anyone who watches this video and wants to give it a go. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.